Namaskar and welcome to this exciting show, Sattology, Debunking Mythology. And we have a great researcher and Muni, I call him Muni, Rishi. Muni is a better word. And he has done a fabulous research on these topics, very well researched through various ways, geographical, astronomical, as well as other things needed. Just before this talk, we had a great conversation with another Indologist, and she emphasized that this is what is needed in today's world. Another thing is, if Indians don't rewrite their own history, Americans and the Western countries are not going to attempt it. So the correction, if anyone is complaining about Indian history books and Indian history being incorrectly represented, so the Indian Education Ministry has to take the first take. It's not for the Western countries to decide. And when they change their histories there, it will be automatically accepted in the US. And I think most of the professors here will agree with me, a lot of professors here. So Americans are not holding a grudge against an Indian university so far. It's the Indian universities have to take an attempt first. Now, again, it's a cat and mouse situation, but without delay, let us welcome Sri Nilesh Oak.
Namaskar, Aditya
Namaskar.
ji, and namaskar, and namaskar to all viewers. Greetings to all viewers. This is the beginning of the, if not the biggest, I think Diwali is the biggest festival
Yes.
for the Indian civilization. So today is the first day, of course, because with the moon phase, so it changes, slightly. But today the Dhanatrayodashi. And so greetings to everyone. So that's the beginning of a 5-day long Diwali festival or Deepavali festival.
So happy Diwali to everyone. Shubh Deepavali to everyone. And Diwali Hardik Shubhecha. So to all of you, because sometimes there's a lot of misconception. People want to worship only Lakshmi in
Mhm.
Diwali when because the husband of Lakshmi is Narayan. So without Lakshmi Narayan, the puja is not complete.
Mhm.
And so it's a big misconception that only worshipping Lakshmi is like if you have a husband and wife and you just say, only I'll take care of the wife, it has sends wrong meanings. So, so you have to include husband there. So my request will be to worship Lakshmi Narayan both together,
Mhm.
not just Lakshmi. And that way the worship will be more complete. So with that, we'll get started on Bhishma Nirvana part 3.
Part three, perfect. And I'll start sharing. And great point that you said that everywhere people tend to see Lakshmi. Actually, people tend seeing Lakshmi everywhere is not a problem. Many times, Lakshmi is also taken as a very reductionist way to money,
Yeah.
and that's Lakshmi is opulence. Okay, that brings satisfaction, and the satisfaction can come from many sources,
Nice.
not just the money, but it's sometime in the reductionist sense it's tied to money. Money is important. Something very important even for today, like Dhana Trayodashi. Okay, granted, we do the puja of many weapons and many other ways it is celebrated across India in different fashion. That's the beauty of Indian civilization. But also that Dhanatrayodashi, many times people connect with the Dhana again wealth and again Lakshmi. But it has a different meaning too, which has to also do with the Dhanvantari, which is the satisfaction, opulence through health. Okay, so it's a Dhanvantari Trayodashi also. As a
Yeah.
short form, it became a Dhana Trayodashi, and Dhana immediately people link to wealth, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me start sharing. And that's where, in fact, I want to start just before we jump into uh, the Bhishma Nirvana itself. Okay, so now you are a fan, Aditya ji, of Srimad Bhagavad Puran. Okay, and one of the things that you would know is what they say when you talk to great realized individuals. Even their random talk becomes like a upadesh, a good coaching, good mentoring. It becomes a source of deep knowledge. Like it says, the tesham swaira kathalapa upadeshani bhavanti. Even a random chat, random talk of realized individuals becomes like a upadesh. The reason I'm bringing that up is when Bhishma is now on the on the bed of arrows from the 10th day of the war. The whole war is over. Then they went to the bank of Ganga. They leave the Pandavas and Krishna and Satyaki. They stayed there for a month. They come back to Hastinapur. They spend few days there. Now Krishna asks Yudhishthir to go to see Bhishma, and that's the day Krishna is saying now he has additional 56 more days to live. So we look through that. Then Yudhishthir Maharaj and Bhishma, there is this dialogue going on for 6 days. All right. And during that 6 days, so much takes place. And one of the things that I want to bring out, I'll bring it on the next page. But today being a Dhana Trayodashi, which is a Dhanvantari Trayodashi also, okay, I want to say, see, you can read Nagari script. See, do you see Vaidyo Dhanvantari here? Okay. Now, that Vaidya Dhanvantari, of course, Dhanvantari is a common name, just like many other names. So there were many of those. But here, very specifically, Vaidya Dhanvantari, and you can see the disciplic succession. Sometimes these people were experts in a certain discipline. It could be medicine, it could be astronomy, it could be agriculture, it could be cow rearing, cow protection, and so on. So this particular genealogy that we are seeing here, it is from Garuda Puran. And look at the first few lines. Then I want you to note down that Vaidyo Dhanvantari line. And then I'm going to take you to the discussion between Yudhishthir and Bhishmacharya. The top line says Vishwamitra Devaratasya Madhuschanda. This is that genealogy, Vishwamitra Devarata Madhuschanda genealogy. And in that genealogy, what you are saying are the names of prominent individuals. These are not names of...
Nahush is there.
Yes.
Raji Rambako.
Suhatra is there,
Suhatra
right?
is there.
Yeah, Gruhatsmad is there.
Yeah.
And these are prominent names. These are not all the names of that genealogy. Vaidya Dhanvantari is mentioned. And if you go one line below, it says Bhima Ratha Ketumato Divo Dasat Maja. Divo Dasat Maja. Now, do you know who Divo Dasat Maja is? A very famous...
Tadatmaja means old.
Yeah, Tadatmaja, but he is the Atmaja. If you take that as an Atmaja, you know, yes. that Divodasa Pravartana is the, and actually the indirect name comes here, it is referring to sage Sushruta. Okay,
Sushruta, yes.
Yeah, the oldest, if one of the oldest, if not the oldest, at least as far as we know from Ityas, the medical man or surgeon. Yes. Now, the reason I'm quoting this from Garuda Puran, I want to take you next to this dialogue between Bhishmacharya and Yudhishthir. And what I want to say is that Yudhishthir is asking very specific questions that is bothering him. He's really feeling bad at all the horrendous killing that has taken place. You know, he is feeling. Again, he is in a moha, just like Arjuna was in a moha at the beginning of a Bhagavad Gita, so to say. You know, these are opportunities found to educate people, enlighten people. So there is some simple discussion will be going on. It may not have a direct relevance to say health or medicine, but casually Bhishmacharya would mention something and that becomes so useful. So for example, here again you see the same genealogy. So I showed you from Garuda Puran, deliberately I showed that to show how consistent it is. Now here again you say the same thing, Madhuschandasya Bhagavan Devaratasya Viryavan. And if you come all the way to the last line here, because the Vishwamitra name did not show up there, but look how it ends up. It says Vishwamitra Maja Sarve Munayo Brahmavadina. These are all these names, many of them we just don't know. These are all great people, great individuals, very accomplished individuals, okay, in the Ityasa of Indian civilization. But now in that list, what do you see here? You know, you see the name Sushruta.
Yes,
Sushruta. Gargyascha Javali Sushrutas Tatha. And even it continues. Karishi. Karishi was another great name in the Ayurveda. Okay. Karisha, Karishi, there's different names he's been called. And also notice there are so many other individuals after Sushruta. And the context, I made a post today on Twitter and I said Sushruta Dhanatrayodashi and Sushruta, we can show with the objectively testable evidence, scientific evidence, that he was definitely more than 6000 BC, more than 8000 years ago. And the timing of Dhanvantari will go even in further antiquity. Now, those people who are not used to scientific way of dating things, they just fall off their chairs when they hear these kind of things. Okay, I just wanted to mention that something that was not even on the specific topic on the mind of Bhishmacharya or Yudhishthir, but even in a casual conversations, it becomes so, it draws so many insights, literally validates that shlok from Bhagavad Puran, tesham swera katha lapa upadeshani bhavanti. No, that's why I wanted to bring this up, and again because relevant to our Bhishma Parva, again our part 3 on this one. Quickly, this is where we stopped last time. Okay, some of the very powerful, extremely powerful astronomy, chronology, poison pills for anyone who may have a claim contrary to these for the timing of Mahabharata, Ramayana, etc., or Rigveda. The duration of Bhishma, I'll not read all through that. I'll just show it on the screen. Okay, but today what we are going to do is we are going to look at the third aspect. The very first part we looked at the chronology evidence. Last time we looked at the astronomy background knowledge and some of the consequences of that background knowledge, specifically the phenomenon of the precession of the Earth's axis. And today what we will do is we will try to bring those two together, but along with astronomy evidence from the Mahabharata text. So let's go there. Okay, so here we have this, I'm using again Venn diagram. This is the astronomy Agama circle. This is the chronology evidence circle from the Mahabharata. So that's evidence we covered in the part 1. Astronomy, Agama, astronomy background knowledge simply means a solid understanding of Indian astronomy, a solid understanding of modern astronomy, so that we can do a comparison. Okay, so when we say something Arundhati there, we know it means Alcor. When we say Vasishta, we know it's a Mizar. When we say Agastya, we know it's a Canopus. When we say Polaris here, we know that it is a Dhruva Matsya, and so on. And then the third one is, this is the astronomy evidence from the Mahabharata text itself. And then we can look at the constraints, timelines, and sensitivity analysis. So we have covered the top 2 circles. This time we are going to look at the astronomy evidence. Huh?
Yes.
Yeah, astronomy evidence. Okay. And again, not purely astronomy evidence, because we will always go back to that chronology. We will always go back to the astronomy background knowledge, because now we are going to see how all this comes together and defines very solid boundaries for the historicity, but not just the generic sense of historicity, but a very specific timeline for Mahabharata. Now, this is something we have already done, but what I want to show you is that even a simple evidence embedded in Mahabharata is very, very meaningful. Okay, all right. So let's begin with the seasons. Okay, now seasons in North America, we will talk broadly of 4 seasons, like so: winter season, spring, summer, and fall. Indian civilization has also seen change of seasons, because the civilization has gone so far back, and I don't want to take you that far back today, at least. But there were times when there were only 3 seasons. Or even right now in our times, we can talk of 3 seasons. Sometime, Adityaji, in India, it feels like only 2 seasons or maybe 1 season. It just thanks to the monsoon rain, at least we can say there is a rainy season. Otherwise, it feels like a summer all the time, you know. But Indian civilization has recorded change of seasons. So there are, you can see the references to 3 seasons. You can see references to 5 seasons. You can see references to 6 seasons. And Mahabharata uses 6 seasons, so I'm going to use the 6 seasons. The solar calendar begins with the day of spring equinox. I'm talking of Indian lunisolar calendar. I'll walk you fast through it. But do pay attention to these seasons, because unless you understand these, you will not understand the marvel and the beauty of what this Bhishma Nirvana evidence is. So we begin with spring equinox. That's a summer calendar. The spring equinox is the halfway point for the Vasanta season. Okay, we can call it spring here in a loose sense. So the second month of Vasanta season is the first month of the solar calendar. So let's continue from there. Okay, then we have 2 seasons of Grishma, the 3 and 4, let's call that number. Now we arrive at the summer solstice, which means in our times, it means 21st of June. Spring equinox means 22nd of March. All right, then the next 2 seasons in the Indian context are the season of a Varsha Rutu, or the monsoon season. Okay, again 2 months. Then the next season is the season of Sharad Rutu, again 2 months approximately for that, with autumnal equinox, the 20th of September, 23rd September, somewhere there as the central point. Then we have 2 seasons of Hemanta, again 2 months, 9 and 10. Now we arrive at the winter solstice. In our times, that corresponds to 21st of December. Okay, sort of a Christmas time. And then the last 2 months of Shishira season, those 12 months. So remember, each month has approximately 30 days, all right, and 6 seasons. And we have the earth at the center, like because we are looking from the earth, and we have these cardinal points. Now, what do we do with this? What is the significance of this for Bhishma Nirvana? And Aditya ji, again, I would ask our viewers to recall that information that Bhishmacharya was lying on the bed of arrows for a minimum of 92 days. That was our part one. And he was lying that way on the bed of arrows until the day of winter solstice.
Winter solstice.
Okay. So today, what in this particular section, what we are going to do is we are going to go backwards. Okay. So what does that mean? We are going to start with the day of winter solstice, which is almost same as the day of Bhishma Nirvana. And remember, Bhishma was on the bed of arrows for 92 days. Okay. And that happens to be the 10th day of the war. So we are going to go backwards. So let's go from winter solstice. We are trying to figure out what was the season of the Mahabharat war. Okay, what was the specific season of the Mahabharat war? That's what we are trying to do. So we start with the winter solstice. We are going back by one season, Hemanta Rutu, which means what? 30 days and 30 days. So out of 92 days, now we consumed 60 days. We have 32 days left. So let's go for another season. We are going backwards, Sharad season. So another month goes by. So we consumed additional 30 days. And Aditya ji, you are following this, right? If you are following, there is a good chance that our viewers would be following it too. Okay. So 30 days, 30 days, 30 days. Out of 92, 90 days are gone. There are 2 days left. But remember, even those 2 days, that actually happens to be the 10th day of the war. So we have to go additional 10 days to find out the beginning of the war. So we have to take those 2 days plus 10 days. So in effect, we are saying it was 92 plus 10 days when the war began. Okay, so that's 102 days. Okay, now what does it tell us? We consumed the whole of Hemanta, we consumed half of Sharada. So definitely we can say with a full confidence that the war began during the first half of Sharad season, the first month of Sharad season. Okay. Now this sounds very innocent, sounds very simple. Okay. It's absolutely brilliant, as you're going to see in a minute. Okay. And then Varsha Rutu, but we don't need to go there. Now this brings us to various outcomes. Okay. Now, first poison pill here, okay, that Mahabharata evidence demands. Now, this is not something I covered so far, but now we are looking at the astronomy evidence. That we already have a description that before the Mahabharata war, Kartik Purnima was over. Okay, that we know that. Alaksha Prabhaya Hina Purnima Sicha Kartikim Chandrodbhut Agni Varnascha Padma Varne Navastale. So the Kartik Purnima is over. And then we are talking about the Krishna and Karna dialogue, and he is saying in 7 days there will be a Shakra Amavasya. So we know that definitely the Mahabharat war cannot begin any time before Kartika Amavasya, which also means it can begin on Kartika Amavasya or after.
After Kartika Amavasya.
After Kartika Amavasya. Okay. Now there is a other limitation, other constraints that we have, which is to say after Bhishma passed away, after Bhishma Nirvana, then Arjuna leaves for the Uttara Kuru, the northern areas beyond what we call today's India, and he goes and collects the taxes because the treasury is empty, and he brings the wealth, okay, that is used for that. Which yajna was that? Ashwamedha yajna.
Rajasuya.
No, Ashwamedha, right? Wasn't Rajasuya was before? This is after the war.
After the war, right?
Yeah, Ashwamedha yajna. And so we have these limits that the war must begin from Kartika Amavasya or after, and Bhishma Nirvana must occur long before the Chaitra full moon, because by Chaitra full moon, Arjuna had gone to the north after Bhishma Nirvana had come back. Okay, so when you put this together, now I'm not going to torture you or our viewers through the nitty-gritty details of astronomy, because that's not very suited for a 40-minute kind of discussion like this. But any astronomer around the world, okay, can, if he or she feels, well, that doesn't make sense, I would challenge them and we can have a open debate on your show, Aditya ji. Okay, so this, if you just look at these two dates, and the winter solstice has to fall between that, and before Chaitra Full Purnima, and the war must begin Kartik Amavasya or after, and there has to be a minimum of 102 days between it. What you get, those all constraints mathematically and astronomically bring you to this limit, that the Mahabharat war can take place only after 7000 BC, and it can take place only before 4700 BC. Okay, so this is just, I'm showing in a visual way. So before Chaitra full moon, the winter solstice must happen, and we know that the Mahabharat war is beginning during the first half of the Sharad season, and that must begin on or after Kartik Amavasya, and that basically gives you that limit. Quickly, I'm showing the calculation, and afterwards, Aditya ji, if you have questions, I can come back to that and explain it. But quickly, so we need a minimum of those 92 days, and we know that the day of winter solstice shifts by 1 degree, which is to say almost by 1 day every 72 years. So if and it so happens in our times that the day Bhishma fell in the battle, Margashirsha Shukla Nomi, that is the earliest we can have. If we take Kartik Amavasya as the first day of the war, it can be later, but it cannot be before that. And that happens to be the limit of when the winter solstice can occur in our times. Therefore, it becomes, calculation becomes very smooth and simple to explain. So if you multiply 92 by 72, I'm just going to do simple 90 by 70. That will give you like something like 6,300, so 6,600, something like that. So from that 6,700, let's take, you subtract 2,000, that gives you 4,700 BCE. The minimum that we just did is that 102 days. That gives you a median, if you want to call it, the timing of Mahabharata around 5,300 BC. Not a surprise, 5561 BC is right there. And the maximum upper limit that we can calculate is based on 125 days. How did I do that? The Kartik Amavasya, so whole month of Margashirsha, whole month of Pausha, whole month of Magha, whole month of Falgun, and 15 days of Chaitra. That's what I'm doing, 30 plus 30 plus 30 plus 30 plus 15, 125 days times 72. The max upper limit is 7000 BC. It is that very solid and mathematical in nature, okay? You cannot fool around. Okay, let's look at quickly the second poison pill, okay? Now, what we just found out there is war happened during the first half of Sharad season. That is given. One additional piece of information, Aditya ji, we get from the Mahabharata, and amazing reference, significant pieces of evidence coming from all over Mahabharata text that tells us that the war happened during the month of Margashirsha. Now, that's not a surprise to you, and that hopefully is not surprise to many of our viewers. For example, without showing this, Aditya ji, if I would have asked you, what was the month of uh, Mahabharata war, or what is the month of Gita Jayanti, what you would have said?
Marga Shirsha.
Margashirsha, right? Margashirsha Shukla Ekadashi is what is celebrated in the Vaishnava
Yes.
circles as this, okay? And sometime we can do a program on that. Actually, if the Bhagavad Gita was told on a Kartik Amavasya, why do we celebrate Margashirsha Shukla Ekadashi as the Gita Jayanti? Okay, we can do that as a separate program. But I want to quickly show you the evidence from the Mahabharata that the month of Margashirsha was the timing when the war took place. And that is going to give us these limits, by the way. It is going to give a median number of 5642 BC and a constraint limits from 6722 BC to 4562 BC. But where do we get this evidence for the month of Margashirsha? It is so rich. I'm going to show you here. If you start following the descriptions of astronomy descriptions, in this specific case, the descriptions for the phases and the positions of the moon through the 18 days of the war, this is exactly what you will find. In fact, there are no descriptions of the moon during the first 7 days of the war, like the whole Bhishma Parva and portion of the first 7 days. Then you start seeing the descriptions of the moon from the day 8, 8, 9, 10, 11. Again, so up to 10 is a Bhishma Parva, 11 is a Drona Parva. But then some magic happens, beginning with the day 12 of the war, all the way to day 18th, and frankly, a day after, you see the whole Mahabharata descriptions rich with full moon descriptions. Okay. And therefore, just to make it visual, this is what I'm showing. So we begin with the Kartika Amavasya, and this is how it is following. Okay. And sometimes there are very specific descriptions of the full moon and also the its position, which is which nakshatra, like Kritika or Punarvasu. So that also tells us basically that it is the month of Margashirsha. Okay. And what is the evidence? This is the evidence. So this is going through the whole 18 days of the war year. So first 10 days, that red dots is Bhishma Parva. Like Bhishma is the military general for Kauravas. Then the next 5 days is Drona is a military general. Then 2 days of Karna, 1 days of Shalya. And if you want to count that one night of Ashwathama, because he was also made a general, through that Saptik Parva. And what I'm showing there are actually the specific references from the Mahabharata text, which gives those descriptions of the moon for its phases and for its positions and how it was rising, whether its pointed ends were down or pointed ends were up, whether it was a Shukla Paksha or Krishna Paksha. Very, very beautiful descriptions. So now let me quickly bring you to how that 5642 comes up. The Yogatara, which is by that star in the sky, we notice the area of that particular nakshatra. So Mrugashirsha Tara, okay, that Bellatrix, Betelgeuse area, the whole area of the Orion. In our times, that star is close to, I mean, it is at the winter solstice or in that area, which is our time. But remember, Mahabharata war didn't happen in our time. In fact, right now it's the end of the winter, right? When the 21st June winter solstice, 21st December winter solstice happens. We have to go back through almost 4 months. We have to go through the whole month of Hemant season, the second part of Sharad season, and we have to go to the first part of Sharad season. Okay, so mathematically, when we do that, and remember now what we did, Aditya ji, in the last part. If the one of the effect of the precession of the Earth's axis is what? Every 2000 years, the lunar month will shift with respect to season by 1 month, approximately every 2000 years. And that is what is brought up here. The exact precise number is 2160 astronomically. For approximation, we can take 2000 years. So Margashirsha, which is now, right now, around that time of winter solstice, the end of Hemanta, we have to move through the second part of Hemanta, first part of Hemanta, second part of Sharad, and bring it to first part of Sharad. So that's like going 2000, 2004 times. That's approximately 8,000 years ago. But mathematically, we can exactly calculate how precise and fine, and that comes to 5642 BCE. That's not the year of Mahabharata war, but the Mahabharata war year should fall somewhere there. That's what it is saying. Okay. Quickly, two more, and we can do this. So the third poison pill. Okay. Now we are using the same evidence in a different fashion. This is called a Samavai. Okay, so it's a sequence, Anukram, but this is also Samavai, association of different evidence that helps us using scientific acumen, logical reasoning to draw inferences. So this is third poison pill. We agree that war during the first half of Sharad, that is simply based on a 92 days. Okay. And now we also knew there that the war happened during the first part of a Sharad season. We also know what happened during the Margashirsha. But the previous one, we just took month of Margashirsha. Now, remember the evidence that I showed you on the previous page, what this one here, what did it show? That it was the Shukla Paksha, the evidence that you are seeing here for 18 chapters, 18 days evidence. It is saying it was the Shukla Paksha, and it started with the Amavasya, and it went through the Purnima and afterwards. So when we include that into account, it essentially now it is saying not only that the war began during the first half of Sharad, not only that the war began during the month of Margashirsha, but actually war began during the first half of the Margashirsha, during the Shukla Paksha, in the Amanta reckoning. And when we do, this is fine tuning, or this is a sensitivity analysis. When we do that, instead of 5642, actually it tells us, hey, you know what? You have to go even further back as the median year. That will be 6205 BCE. And of course, the range will be 7285 BCE to 5525 BCE. This is the time, only during this time, what is shown above will be true. Okay, that the something happening. So Shukla Paksha of Margashirsha occurring during the first half of Sharad will only happen during this time, these 2000 years. Okay, and that is what I am showing here. Uh, Again, we have to shift through 4 months, but also account for additional 15 days, and that is what shifted from 5642 to 6205. Again, how are we doing this math? One day shift happens in 72 years. So 15 times 72 is approximately what's taking us there. All right. Okay. Those are how many poison pills we had? Three.
Three.
Okay. And the next part, we will have one more poison pill and we will summarize this Bhishma Nirvana. But quickly, those people who may be interested in knowing the details beyond this presentation, they can pick up this book, Bhishma Nirvana. If you're in India, that's how the covers would look like. This is from, you can go online to Subbu Publications and you do it. If you are in, anywhere outside India, then you can go to Amazon. That's how the cover would look like. And the book, specific book that is relevant for the discussion we are doing in Bhishma Nirvana is this Bhishma Nirvana. Very easy to remember. Okay, all right. And let me see if I have anything else. No, that's it. That's it. Aditya ji. Now I have a question for you, but let me give it back to you. And if you have any questions before I ask you the question.
So poison pill extravaganza, that's a very amazing extravaganza that you're showing over there. Now, one question I have is in the Bhagavad Puran, it is mentioned, Arabhya Bhavato Janma Yavan Nad Bhishechanam. Etad Varsha Sahasrantu Shatam Pancha Dashotaram. So that's Shukdev Goswami speaking to Parikshit.
Yeah.
That from your birth, which is around before Mahabharat war.
Yeah.
Sorry, after Mahabharat war. Parikshit.
Correct. Correct.
And with till the time of Yavananda,
yeah,
up till Nanda, it will be 1150 years will pass. So, how does that put into perspective? Because we know when was Nanda was born, according to, maybe wrong, completely wrong, but I question that birthday.
Correct.
So then it pushes Nanda and Chandragupta also way back.
Yeah. Right. And so you said correctly that there is some dispute with the timing of Nanda himself, but your question is still relevant. For example, many people are discussing the timing of Nanda, Mahananda, whatever you want to call it, and they are going from, some people will say 400 BC and all the way to 1600 BC. Okay, those are the dates I have heard. Have you heard anything beyond this?
Actually, Nanda's appearance should be, yeah, you're right. It will be minimum like 1500 BCE or more.
Yeah. Yeah, so 1600 maximum, 1800 BC on that side, and maybe to 400 BC somewhere there on the lower side, right?
Yeah.
The lower limit, we can say. Now, doesn't matter which of these limit you take. Now, the number that you just said from Bhagavad Puran, 1000 years or so, if you add to, let's take the best case scenario, it's like 1800 BC. Best case in the sense, we can go as far back as we can with that evidence. So let's take 1800 BC or 1600 BC, add 1000 to it. That's going to take us to 2800 BC, 2600 BC, something like this. And there are some Mahabharat researchers who therefore came at like 2500 BC. There are people like that, Rai Chaudhary and whatnot. Here is the challenge. If you look at various references in a scientific investigation, we should look at all the evidence, but we should also apply the criteria of a consistency.
Right.
For example, like in the Puranas also, for example, you quoted from Bhagavad Puran. What was that exact number? 1115?
Yes.
Yeah. But if you go to say Matsya Puran, that number slightly changes. In another Puran, it becomes 1500. So the reason is because the Purana has totally different subject on their mind. They are not so obsessed, let's say,
The
with the
dates.
dating as much as I am, for example,
Yeah.
or many, or as much as we should be,
Yeah.
depending on a certain context.
Yeah.
But that is not the context of Purana. Purana is has a different flavor. Why those are written? Okay, think of Purana as what is remembered,
Mm.
Ityasa is what is happened, and
Happened.
Shruti is what is heard, right?
Yeah.
So they are bringing this in a certain context.
Mm.
Okay, so therefore, if we want to know something about the Mahabharata, it's perfectly okay to look at Bhagavad Puran and bring up that evidence and see if it sheds some light. It's perfectly okay to go to some Upanishad. It's perfectly okay to look at Greek records, the travelers' records like Megasthenes and whatnot. Having said that, no matter what the conclusion, actually the Megasthenes records very much matches with 5561 BC. We can do that some other time. But the point is, the Bhagavata record does not match with what Mahabharata has to say. It does not match. Now, Mahabharata doesn't have a genealogy evidence, unfortunately.
Mm.
Okay, it only has this astronomy evidence, it has hydrology evidence, it also has oceanography, it has climatology, but not genealogy evidence. Okay, therefore, it doesn't match. So let's accept that it doesn't match. But then I would say, Aditya ji, suppose I can speculate as much as I want about your birth date or my birth date, but as a common courtesy, would you say it is fair that if we are discussing my birthday, people should at least ask me or
Yes.
my parents, right?
Yes.
So if we are talking about Mahabharata, it's perfectly okay to look at Greek traveler records like Megasthenes and Strabo and whatnot. It's perfectly okay to look at Puranas, but we must look at the Mahabharata evidence. Now, if Mahabharata evidence wouldn't have given us anything, then we would have said, okay, we have to do with whatever evidence we have access to. For example, take Alexander the Great, right? People are so obsessed with archaeology evidence. Now, in case of Alexander the Great, there is absolutely no archaeological evidence. This comes
Oh.
as a surprise to even archaeologists. They say, "Oh, is that right? Who told you that?" I
Mm.
said, "Just please bring me one archaeological evidence in support of Alexander the Great." Okay, they say, "Well, there are his statues." I say, "Bhai, Krishna ka bhi kitne statues hai?" Like Ram ke bhi the point being, but there are some records related to Alexander, and that's how we come to know about Alexander, right?
Yeah.
We know something before, something after. That's how we figure it out. So that is the answer to your question. We can also sometimes talk about this. I call this problem of genealogy. I call it the problem of two unknowns,
Mm.
because to use genealogy evidence, I need to know total number of kings or sages or whoever, and I need to know the total duration or specific duration for each individual. And what you will find in our ancient Indian narratives, that information, a complete information, is simply not there. There is a tons of information, there's a lot of genealogy list, but none of the list is complete. So that is a long answer to your short question.
So if we add this number to your date of the day Mahabharat war ended, and then this thing, then these dates get pushed way back.
Correct. And some people have tried to do that. What they have done is they have started with my date 5561 BCE and used the Purana genealogy of those years that you just mentioned. And now they put, say, Mahananda into 4000 BC or wherever that goes.
Correct.
I mean, anyone can do anything they want. Like, just like the Western historians have done that with the Indian history, Indian itihas. They didn't even understand what itihas is.
Yeah.
That is a challenge. But in some sense, I mean, we should give them a credit
Mm.
that, until then, for most part, although solid evidence existed in our ancient narratives, the Indian civilization, for most part, I would say, did not
Yeah.
bother to even be interested in knowing the exact dates.
Mm.
Okay, so in that sense, although what Western Indologists did was motivated with their own agenda, that happens. I mean, that should not happen, but it happens. It happens in academia. We have many academics people listening to us. It's very unfortunate, but it also has a silver lining.
Mm.
It really woke up Indians if they were interested, and actually that has done a lot of good things, because now we can start looking at our science, culture, technology in much more granular way than we ever did. Because in the past it was okay to say a long time ago it happened,
Mhm.
and that was sufficient. So that's a great discussion. We'll do that. But I have a question for you, quick, Aditya ji. and this is a question at an emotional level that people like to know. They ask me, and I don't have an answer, which is this. So Bhishma was such a great individual. He was one of the eight Vasus, very realized person. He has this boon of he can control the timing of his death. Now, why did he has to go through this suffering? Just imagine all the arrows, the shalya in his body through this 92 plus days, just waiting for the day of winter solstice.
No, this is like a, this is similar to that Kunti Maharani praying,
Hmm.
give me suffering so I can
Hmm.
remember Vishnu more. So, we know all the story of Vasu, and there are only eight Vasus.
Hmm.
Bhishma was the youngest of them, and he did not become the ninth. He merged, he went back to his original position.
Right.
So, this example of he voluntarily took so much of pain, and the whole purpose was, and according to, I'm not trying to be myself the analyst here. The acharyas explained that he wanted to take this suffering to just make sure that he doesn't forget Hari or Krishna.
Hmm.
Like when Krishna comes over there,
Hmm.
he says, I've been waiting for you.
Yeah. Yes.
That's what he says. I've been waiting for you. That's why I'm keeping the. I could have left it first day, but
Hmm.
you will be busy, so I've been
Hmm.
waiting for you.
Correct.
And during that time, because he didn't want to remember anything else, because he's a politician also. He could be worried
Hmm.
about Hastinapur. He could be worried about so many things. Whether
Hmm.
Yudhishthira will be able to manage the kingdom, that also
Hmm.
can be a worry over there.
Hmm.
And that's why he gives the whole instruction of Raj Vidya to Yudhishthir,
Hmm.
because he's naturally concerned with Hastinapur.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons, that's what I heard, was this was the main reason that he did not want to forget Hari till the
Hmm.
very end.
Yeah.
And
and
so,
and that does come up, Aditya ji, during the Vishnu Sahasranam, which is
correct.
again a conversation between the two.
Yeah.
And it is interesting that it is a Krishna says, well, let's get Bhishmacharya to recite it,
Yeah.
right? So Vishnu Sahasranam. And then after that, then Yudhishthira asked, I think, another question about the Shiva, like, the Shiva principle. And then it's very interesting dynamics between Bhishmacharya and Krishna also.
Krishna also.
Then Bhishmacharya says, who can describe the glory of Shiva? And he gets Krishna to recite the Shiva Sahasranama.
Sesha Sahasranam.
How
Yes.
fascinating. Huh?
Very fascinating. So people who are, they say that Vishnu and Shiva are always competing. That's never the case. It's a loving
Yeah,
relationship.
there is no competition. It's like a space-time continuum of Einstein. Vishnu is
Correct.
a space. Literally, that's what it means. Vish means to expand, and Shiva is a kala, which is the
Ah,
time. Space-time. Yeah, there is no competition. They are one and the same.
yeah.
Isn't that what Einstein is trying to convey to us?
Well,
In our
Einstein
time.
is no longer now relevant by our historians now.
True. True.
But no, I'm just joking. Yeah, the Einstein is relevant. Most of you are studying Einstein right now, but from the Vedic knowledge point of view, it is a very small phenomena.
Or for history, because we shouldn't bring the yuga and try to define the history. That creates
Correct.
the chaos. So same
Correct.
thing we shouldn't do with the space-time.
Yes. So thank you, Nilesh ji, and all the viewers who stayed so long on this today, became a little longer. But it is, I thank you all for staying back. Do watch the YouTube coming next week. It will be on a weekend. It's a prime time show. So do watch it and do comment it. And if you want to learn from our great Muni, Nilesh Oak, anytime, so you are welcome to write the comments there and write to, and do buy his books on the presentation he's showed. So thank you very much, Nilesh ji, as usual, the very
Thank you.
best presentation. And thank you viewers for watching. Namaskar.